Well, hello everyone. I am Cyndi Young. Welcome to Brownfield's final Tailgate Talk of 2025. Thank you all that we can't see who are joining us today. And thank you very much to those we can see, our farmers who have given up time during their busy day to spend an hour with us. And over the next hour, we'll discuss the 2025 growing season, lessons learned that we'll take forward into 2026. And we'll wrap up the conversation by talking about their media habits. So let's kick off by meeting our farmers that are participating today. Scott Gigstad is 56 years old and farms in Brown and Atchison counties in Kansas. Now, that's the northeast corner of the state for you that are unfamiliar with the geography there. He's a fourth generation on his family farm. Scott raises corn and soybeans along with a little hay. His family is mostly retired, but his uncle and brother help him out during the busy times of the year. Scott is actively involved with the Kansas Soybean Association as well as his county farm bureau. Scott takes an active role in church and in his kids' activities. So, welcome, Scott. Give us a wave. And Eric Tipton is our next contestant. Is our next participant. Eric is 36 years old and farms in Fayette and Madison counties in southwest Ohio. He raises corn, soybeans, wheat, and triticale on 3,000 acres. He also raises some feeder calves. Uh, Eric farms with his wife and 5 employees. He also owns Progressive Edge Ag Service LLC, which is a precision ag business and has 3 employees there. Eric serves on the Ohio Corn and Wheat Association Board and the Ohio Corn and Wheat PAC Board. So, welcome, gentlemen. Let's just jump right in. Let's start by talking about the 2025 growing season. In general, overall, Eric, how was it?
Overall, very, very fortunate for what we had. We had a pretty easy planting season. We had pretty favorable weather to get the crops in, so not a whole lot of challenges there. We were looking pretty strong up until the beginning of August,
Mm-hmm.
and then the water shut off for us. So it really took the top end out of everything, and we wound up about a pretty average year, which in Ohio, that's you count your blessings. So pretty smooth harvest, decent weather most of the way through. Your typical breakdowns and whatnot, but overall, um, I would say pretty average, pretty smooth year.
Okay. Scott, how about you? How was the 2025 season for you?
We have nothing but to just feel blessed. This was the year, I sort of say this jokingly, all the weather gurus thought was going to be hot and dry and we don't have much irrigation in my part of the country. And so people were talking about that earlier in the spring and we had a very nice spring to get crops in the ground timely, to get field work done, and we just had some timely rains through the summer that really gave us a nice crop. Like Eric, it turned off dry kind of the first part of August. Fortunately, we had some good moisture the end of July and was able to kind of sustain us. We did pick up some moisture then the first part of September, which really helped some of the later maturing soybeans and soybeans that were planted maybe a little bit later in May. And, really, we had a couple big obstacles this year through the growing season. One was southern rust with the corn that came in kind of beginning late July, but really through the middle part of August, kind of from about August 15th through the 30th of August. It really affected the corn. The corn that was not fungicided certainly showed up quickly. Um, and then, we had a nice fall harvest. And so unless I would have observed this on my farm, I wouldn't have believed it. But there literally was about a 40 bushel yield difference between corn that was fungicided and corn that wasn't. So that played a big part this year for us.
So going into 2026, let's talk about some lessons learned. And it sounds, Scott, like you learned a lesson where fungicide is concerned.
Well, over the years we've spent a lot of money flying on fungicide, and you're always scratching your head saying, "Are we just, throwing money away here?" This was one of those years that it really paid, and yes, I had about 100 acres that I didn't spray just because of trees and power lines and obstacles. Um, and I just thought, we'll just leave it and see what happens. And um, and it proved to be a good decision to spray.
Few lessons learned that you'll take into 2026.
Hmm. Yeah, how much time you got?
All the time
Uh,
you want.
Scott's been at this a lot longer than I have, and in Ohio, we deal with it can be sunny and 75 one day, and we could be looking at snow the next. And so when we talk about, all of the studies and um, the timing of getting the crop in the ground, you get a lot of different reviews. But this year, statewide, it paid to get crops in the ground as early as you could possibly get them in the ground, and it paid in a big way. So I don't know that that's going to be the answer here in Ohio every single year, but it's definitely something to add to the memory bank of how big of a difference that made, jumping on some of those windows of opportunity versus, kind of sitting back and saying, well, we can do some other things today. So, um, that was definitely a lesson learned there. And I think it's going to affect what planter we pull out of the barn first next year. I think that we'll continue historically, we've always started planting corn first, but last couple of years we started planting beans, and I think this year probably um, strengthens that way of thinking, at least here in Ohio. So, um, and you know, having a strong marketing plan in place with the current state of our of our politics as far as that goes, um, you can miss out on so many opportunities just so quickly. And if you have a solid, this it's never going to be perfect, but having a plan built somewhere, I think is something that I won't forget.
So as you look into 2026, will you be making any changes to the operation, maybe based off of what happened in 2025, or just based on the current situation, or because the opportunity's right, different crops, new equipment, any big changes, small changes, big changes there? Eric?
That's a great question. I think it's going to be, I think for us, and I think for a lot of other growers, it's going to be really taking a step back and looking at your operation at a 10,000 foot view, and really trying to decipher out some of the things that may be more considered luxury items and the things that um, we don't have hard evidence that pays, and figuring out the things that you can weed out to keep your balance sheet strong. And um, the last couple of years we started talking about sharpening our pencils, and this year I think we're gonna I think we're past being forced to do that. So, um, small incremental changes, but really paying attention to what works and what we're using as far as, some of the fertilizer or some of the technologies or some of the things that we typically, replace year after year. We may try to push and get creative and see if we can make things last a little bit longer, just stretching the dollar, I guess.
What about you, Scott? Anything that you see, small, large, in between changes?
Well, like Eric, uh, you never know what Mother Nature's going to throw at you here in Northeast Kansas. We can have the whole gamut of being overly wet and overly dry. We have a really heavy clay soil, which oftentimes is unforgiving in either extreme. But I just sort of had this conversation. I had a meeting with our tax person here a couple days ago, and we were going over. I said, I wonder sometimes, are we doing good expenditures of money on some of the technologies? Are we getting an ROI here? Should we look at cutting back on some of these practices that we're doing? And those are hard decisions to answer because I'll go back to the fungicide for an example. There's been a lot of years that we've probably sprayed fungicide, and it probably hasn't given us an ROI. This year it paid off big, but it's hard to pick and choose what years you're going to do that because you might miss the year that it really pays off. And so in sharpening the pencil and making changes, it's difficult because you could miss the opportunity in any given year that whatever you cut may really pay off big.
It looked like you were getting ready to say something there. Did I miss that? Were you agreeing with him?
Yeah, 100%. And to add on to Scott's point, with some of these practices like a fungicide application, on corn and on beans, it's a mental thing to where you do it and you hit that year that it pays and it makes you almost sick to pull some of that kind of stuff out of the rotation when you look at a 10-year average on what the yields have done on your farm and you're like, what are the things that you've done to make that happen? And it makes it even harder in these economic times to pull those practices out. So I'm agree wholeheartedly with Scott there.
So when you are making those decisions that are so difficult, um, managing risk, but not knowing for sure, um, where do you go for advice? Who are your trusted sources that you would go and talk to about something like this or any other major decision that you might have on your farm? Eric?
Um, we have a great group of consultants that we work with, Precision Agri Services up in Minster, Ohio. Those guys are great. Um, they are a independent, non-biased, type of organization. So, when we get advice from them, they're not soliciting anything. So it makes um, it's a good foundation for everything else that you're about to hear. And then I think that we go to our seed agronomists and we talk with them, and then I think we talk with our chemical folks as well. I mean, it's not everybody out here is trying to sell you something. I think that there's a lot of really genuinely good, knowledgeable people who have your best interest in mind, and I think we're starting to see that as um, a lot of the glitter and shine has been taken out of the ag industry here lately. So I think it's the people, at least in our part of the world, you're really starting to find the people that are here for the long game. So we've got a really good team between our consultants, seed agronomists, chemical agronomists. Um, those are the folks that I typically turn to. And then um, I I do. Again, we're in the precision technology world. I love looking at some of the stuff from the PTI farm. A lot of that's fairly unbiased. It's not perfect by any means, but um, get the opinions of the industry folks and then kind of fall back and look at some of the research and try to justify what you're considering.
Who do you turn to? Who do you trust for advice?
Well, it's similar to Eric. We have some excellent independent, what I'm going to call full service agronomy businesses in our area that I have. I know personally some of the agronomists there, and we actually serve on boards together, and they do soil sampling work for me, for example, and I just sort of hang my hat on them. They cover a lot bigger geographic area than I do. They have a good idea of, what's working and what's not working. Fortunately, I have some really great neighbors that we communicate back and forth, and between us, we are usually trying something new or different each year, and we share each other's information of, hey, this maybe has some merit, this maybe doesn't have merit. Um, and so I just think your network of people at least helps me make some of those decisions. Um, and then I feel fortunate because I have had the opportunity to serve on the Kansas Soybean Association board for a number of years, and there's a network of people on there from different parts of the state, and it's always interesting to see what maybe is working in other areas of the state. And so it's just a conglomeration of things. I don't think there's just one sole thing that helps me make a decision. But kind of like Eric, it's a network of different organizations.
You both are very involved with commodity organizations, with Farm Bureau, with some other groups like that. How important do you think it is for you and for other farmers to be a part of those organizations, those commodity groups? There are so many different things that can take your time. What is the value in that to you, Eric?
Well, um, is the thing that I learned early on in my career, and it's almost bothersome in some ways, but in other ways it's kind of expected how many things are can affect agriculture in the world of policy, and how many things revolve around the folks that are in office, and how it affects what we do every single day in ag. So when we talk about the value of membership and those sorts of things, I serve on the association board, so I got to be really careful what I say as far as the checkoff dollars versus the membership dollars. But those membership dollars go to help us go to, help pay our way to go to DC so that we can speak on my neighbor's behalf. So if nothing else, my plug is for membership, no matter what state that you're in, because our voice is in agriculture is very small. But it always impresses me. Tad Nicholson, who's our chief executive, always makes the comment that we punch well above our weight, and I think that that's the case with ag. We have such a we have such a small percentage, but we pack a punch when it comes to going to DC and talking about issues and really getting involved. So um, that's my opinion, anyways.
What is the value to you of being a part of a commodity organization?
Cindy, 10 years ago, I was approached about serving on the Soybean Association. And at first I was leery. I thought, that's going to be a fairly big time commitment. And I kind of drug my feet getting involved. But I also, um, it was an opportunity to broaden my horizons. Hopefully, through the process of me learning, then I could maybe give something back to agriculture. And I would just tell people who are not members the value, and I've experienced this, the value of being able to put somebody in our elected officials' office in Washington, D.C. is, I mean, almost priceless. As an individual, for Scott Gigstead to call and set up an appointment to go meet with a senator or a representative, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it would be very difficult. But when the Kansas Soybean Association, for example, calls and said we would like to sit down with our senator, then things happen much easier. And I'm always amazed that at when we're there, the pens and the papers are out, and they take note, they take heed to what our concerns are. And I think it's a very important, um, just a very important aspect of the farming business that we have that kind of a connection on the policy side.
Okay, I am going to jump into a completely different direction now. We talked a lot about technology before everybody else got on here because we were having some camera and video issues. Technology is a very important or very important part of most farming operations today. So, as you look at technology and what's coming down the road, there's a lot of talk about AI, and I mean artificial intelligence, not artificial insemination, which is a whole different part of the agriculture world. AI, are you using it, Eric? How are you using it? What do you think?
I believe that AI has a place, and I think that that place is in areas, at least in agriculture. I think that that place is in, as we have a conversation around autonomy and those sorts of things, and facial recognition, and in our case, object recognition, where that tractor or that vehicle has to recognize the difference between a human being and a rock. I think that it has a place there. I think that it has a place in really strengthening um, what strengthening our decision making at a soil level. We do not have the capacity to sit here and calculate all of the things and the different soil levels and all of the things that are going on in our soil system. I think there's a place on the agronomy side for it. I try to be fairly disciplined, and maybe this is my really backwards way of thinking, but I don't utilize it when I'm writing emails. I don't utilize it. I try to keep my mind sharp. I got to know how to spell, read, and write. So I don't use it there. And it's like I said, I think that it has a place. Just again, not so much in my everyday life in the office, but out there in the field. One thing that impressed me about it was we employ probably 4 or 5 guys in their 20s, and we had a part that we found on the road, and Scott probably understands the scared feeling that when you pick a piece up off the road, what did this come out of? And one of our guys snapped a picture of it and found exactly where it came from, like what piece of equipment, and it was like, okay, that's kind of impressive. So, a long answer to your question is I believe that there is a place for it here and there, but as of today, I'm still doing it, still writing all my own emails and writing all of my own responses. So.
About you, AI, what do you think? Are you using it? Will you use it?
Well, Cindy, I feel like I'm 25. In reality, as you mentioned earlier, I'm 56. So probably the generational gap on technology will will show up for me on this answer. Yes, I use technology, but more specifically to the artificial intelligence. I've had discussions with, well, it was more specifically John Deere, but we talked about autonomy tractors because, believe it or not, that sounds somewhat attractive to me, especially since I'm um, really limited on my labor pool. And so to have a tractor that can drive through the field on its own and allow me to do something else um, looks attractive. Whether or not it's financially feasible is a whole different topic. Um, and I think artificial intelligence is something that's coming at us. I think it has um, a world of really positive and good things that it can provide. I also think it can be a little bit scary. I do wonder sometimes, with our human race, how is it going to affect, especially the younger generation? I look at my kids and it's just almost like that they're genetically bred to be drawn towards technology devices, and I'm the opposite of that. And so it'll be interesting as we move forward. But yes, I think artificial intelligence will have a place in agriculture. I agree with Eric, especially in the agronomy. I think when we look at our soils, I don't know that we are even scratching the surface of what we really know about them. And I think some wonderful things will come from it.
Okay, I'm going to jump in a totally different direction again. How brand faithful are you with ag equipment, with seed, with crop inputs in general? Do you stick with the same brand, Scott? If so, why? And if not, why?
So for me, since we're talking about technology, um, I I have a couple different brands of technology, but for me, whenever I update something, the first question I ask the salesperson is, "Can I have your cell phone number? Can I call you on Saturday evenings? Can I call you Friday night at 9 o'clock? Um, am I going to have the support?" And that is probably the most important thing for me. Um, and that trickles into machinery. So with this newer machinery, a lot of times you can't fix it with the wrench. You got to have a laptop and the software to diagnose it. And so I look at who's going to give me the best service, and that's kind of the brand that I gravitate towards. Um, and, and I would say that's, everything is driven towards volume um, and loyalty. And I was having that discussion too with a young man who was getting into the seed business, and I said, that's tough because all these companies are pushing you towards, well, we'll give you a little more discount if you expand what you're doing with us. Well, then at some point you can only expand so much. So, yeah, I probably tend to be loyal to the different aspects of my farm, mostly for service.
So you rely on that relationship with a local dealer or company representative in helping make some of those decisions.
Yes.
Okay. Eric, I'm going to throw it your way.
Um, I am kind of a mixture of both worlds. There's a part of me that still has that kind of old school mindset of there's only one color and one color only on this farm, but then there's That mentality has changed a lot over the years and throughout my career. And today, as we sit here, I will tell you my mindset is um, I believe at this point we have 3 or 4 different colors on the farm. I'd have every brand of pickup truck, at least that's we'll say it's American made, but Ford, Chevy, and Dodge, we've got all 3 of them. At this point in my career and at this point in my life, I'm more loyal to the people and the people that are going to service us, and I care more about that piece of equipment or that vehicle or whatever it may be. I feel more passionately about is it a good fit for our operation? Is it cost effective? And is the people do I really enjoy and appreciate and value the people that I'm working with? And those things, there's one local dealer, Mayor Farm Equipment, that we work with a lot. And if they woke up tomorrow and started selling a different brand of tractor, we would probably follow, which is very different than where I was 10 years ago. Today it's more about the people and the relationships for me and the service, to Scott's point. Um, it is very, very scary how you can buy a $500,000 piece of equipment and have nobody in the countryside that knows how to service the thing. It's a very scary place to be.
Are either of you looking at, and we kind of touched on this earlier, but are either of you looking at any new equipment purchases, maybe not in 2026, but in the next couple of years?
Oh, I
Either one
know.
of you.
Well, for me, I keep going back to Eric's comment about sharpening the pencil, and that's an area that you start to look at. Um, I actually just um, have entered my combine into a winter inspection program, and I've just decided that I'm gonna run it another year, and then I think a year from now, I may be looking to trade combines. Um, I'm just trying to be super careful. Um, Machinery is a valuable tool on the farm. You have to have it to operate, but it's also an asset that is crashing in value. And to me, it becomes more scary. I'm going to show my age, but when I started farming and I came home, I remember my dad saying, Scott, for $100,000, if you shop around, you can buy a lot of good used machinery to farm with. Well, heavens, today, 100,000, I mean, doesn't even buy you a decent used tractor hardly. So everything has gotten super expensive, and I think it's an area we really got to watch for us, for our farm.
Sure. Eric, any brand new combines on the horizon for you?
No, and I mean it's a little bit of a touchy subject. I mean, for me, we're back to basics. Um, make sure that our equipment is serviced, make sure it's ready to go, make sure we can do everything that we can to eliminate breakdowns. We're not trading this year. Um, it's at this point, any new piece of equipment that shows up on the farm better have a pretty serious ROI.
Mhm.
And this is not the year, in my opinion, this is for us at least, this is not the year to, you know, start trading things just to say we traded them. I don't think the financials line up there, and frankly, it's extremely frustrating when, we are looking at the prices that we're looking for new tractors. And historically, before I took over the operation, that was kind of the rotation was, um, you know, my predecessor was in good financial standing, so he rolled tractors every couple years, and um, this is going to look a lot different for us. So I think any, the one major purchase that we had this year was a grain trailer that diversified us in other areas in industry so that we could be flexible and make some more money off the farm.
When you have new or used equipment, there's always going to be a need for repair. Things happen, repair and parts. Have you had any issues getting the parts that you need? I know during the COVID years, there was a lot of trouble with the supply chain. Is that back in order now? Can you get what you want or need, Eric?
I think it's calmed down a little bit. I mean, it seems like it's not so much of an issue getting the parts that we need. It's how ridiculously expensive those parts are. In some cases, a 300% increase on some of the parts that we bought during the COVID times is outrageous. And we are finding ourselves getting more and more creative. Farmers are a tricky animal. We will fabricate and we will find ways when we are not happy with, the unreasonable price increase that we see. So um, we're getting pretty good at fab work these days.
Do you do you shop around when it comes to parts? I mean, there are a lot of different aftermarket places that you can go, some online opportunities, go into your local dealership. Where do you go? How do you shop for that, Eric? If you're not fabricating.
And I think that's a little bit of what happened as to why we have so many different colors on the farm. Yes, we shop around because um, it's starting to get easier and easier to find out that a lot of these companies utilize some of the same pieces and parts, and um, we are going to shop and go find a part or a replacement piece that is fair value. Um, Loyalty kind of goes out the window at that point.
How far will you how far will you drive to get the part that you need, that you want?
Still on me.
Scott?
Well, well, I guess it depends on the time of the year, and I guess it depends on the urgency. If we're in the heat of the moment on, whatever application we're doing, if I have to set for a day to wait for the part or, hop in the pickup and drive a couple hundred miles to get it, I'll hop in the pickup and go get it. I'm not afraid to travel a little bit if that's what it takes to get it done.
Okay, I want to ask one more question about an input. Biologicals. They've been around for a long time now. We've seen highs and lows, positives, negatives, everything in between. Some people swear by them, some people swear they will never try them. Scott, what are your feelings about biologicals in agriculture on your farm?
So I know they've become very popular. I have dipped my toe, probably is the best way to put it, in the water with them. Of- In my opinion, for our farm, um, I would like to experiment um, more with them, on a scaled basis. I think right now, especially when economics are tight, um, I I want something that I know I can maybe get a little better ROI on. I'm not 100% sold yet on them.
What what would be the thing that would get you to try a new one, whatever it might be?
Well, I mean, I guess ultimately it's going to be yield or um, a reduction of an input, like fertilizer, um, and like I said, I've been using some as a fertilizer replacer. But one of the things I look at, I'm like, well, if the cost of the biological is as expensive or maybe slightly more than the fertilizer, for example, that I'm replacing, it does make you scratch your head a little bit, knowing that you're replacing something that you know works with something that's, maybe new and maybe sounds good, but is it going to hang in there in the tough environmental conditions?
Okay. Eric, anything you want to say about using biologicals?
You know, I it's a lot like AI. I think it's got it. I think that they have their place. We are so we're 100% no-till, 100% cover crop on our acres. And the thing that intrigues me more about biologicals are some of the benefits that I'm going to get out of like some of the microbial activity that's going on in our soils. So I look at them more so as a tool. If I can utilize them to help my soil ecosystem basically release more nutrients and do those types of things. Um, I see it as a tool. I don't know that I'm ready to have them start replacing things in the system because again, in my situation, I'm back to basics. Do what we know works. In fact, we are doing some experiments with biologicals, but we're not going whole hog. Um, we're kind of dipping our toe in it, much like Scott, just figuring out if there's a place in our system for it. And the determining factor is going to be when the combine rolls through. It's got to have almost a double payback in my mind. It's got to be a 50% ROI. Otherwise, with the risk that we're dealing with, it's tough to justify.
Keep those pencils sharp, and um, if the opportunity is right, you'll take advantage of it.
Cyndi, can I make a comment here? I don't mean to
Absolutely.
interrupt you. So Eric has commented a couple times. I've heard him say back to basics, and it just makes me think about this has been quite a few years ago. A very good friend of mine and I traveled over to Indianapolis, I think, to a no-till conference, and it was an excellent conference. Had a lot of information, a lot of new technologies for the time. And when we were returning home, of course, we were talking about the different workshops and stuff we had been to. And the thing that resonated to me more than anything when I got back home was Scott, just concentrate on the basics. Get the basics right, do a good job with those, and that's where you're going to get your best ROI. And then, in the economic times when you feel like you have some more money to spend, then I think some of these new technologies that are out there, I absolutely think they have a place. I think it's trying to figure out how to use them properly so that it doesn't hurt you. I've heard Eric made the comment we're back to basics, and I so concur with that. I've told myself many times, Scott, just focus on the basics and do the best job you can getting them right.
All right, guys, we're gonna switch over and talk about your media habits a little bit as we wrap up the hour, which goes by so quickly. And to be transparent for the audience that is out there, both Scott and Eric listen to ag programming on local radio stations. So, Scott, what moves the needle for you when you hear advertising for a new product or service? What motivates you to take the next step to check it out?
Well, I think, first of all, if it's something that I think will be a fit for our farm, um, and it's intriguing to me, that's something that moves the needle that says, hey, I would maybe like to experiment with this a little bit. Um, and so I guess that's where it's sort is if it's going to be a fit for me. If it's something that, of course, I'm like, I don't think this will work in our area. If it's an irrigation technology, for example, or something that you can foliar feed through a pivot, well, there's not really much need for me to listen to that because we don't have that opportunity. But if it's something I can run through a sprayer or, apply spring or fall, or a piece of technology on a machinery that would work in Northeast Kansas, then yeah, I'm all ears.
If this message that you hear on the radio, um, who do you trust to deliver that message? Do you want to hear from another farmer? Do you want to hear from somebody from the company? Um, whose voice would you like to hear sharing that information with you?
Well, I think if you hear a farmer's voice, you maybe have a little peace of mind with that because you have somebody who's maybe used the product. Usually, my next question is who locally maybe sells it, or who can I talk to more specifically in my area about using whatever the application may be or the technology may be.
Okay, Eric, I'll be to you in a minute, but Scott, I want to finish this thought. You hear this message on the radio. It's a product that you're interested in. What's your next step? What do you do with that information? Where do you go?
Well, well, I guess because I'm old school, Cindy, I've oftentimes written down phone numbers or websites or whatever the case may be on my notepad that I'm usually carrying. And then I'll go home or pick up my cell phone and either look the website up or make a phone call and inquire about it.
Okay, Eric, for you, um, what moves the needle for you when you hear an advertisement on the radio?
I remember we had this conversation last year, and these days, I'm afraid that my opinion has completely done a 180. Last year I believe my response was I like to hear from my neighbors um and what their experience and what their opinions of it are, and there's still some value there. I would agree with Scott to some extent. Having a little bit of rapport with that product or that service is very important. Don't get me wrong. Um, One thing that has really frustrated me here over the course of the last year and is that because of the economic times that we're in, farmers are not the only ones that are feeling this economic pinch. Ag industry as a whole, especially on the equipment side, um, it's a ghost town when you want to go find an expert. And it is so refreshing to hear an expert, a person that I would call or that somebody else would call an expert in their field. And I find myself tuning in more so to those people because I love my neighbors. We all get along really well. But the old saying goes, just because it works on your operation doesn't mean it's going to work on mine. I want the facts. And I want somebody who has invested a lot of their energy into a product that they believe in. And that's getting harder and harder to find in this industry.
If you go online, if you go to a website online, you see an ad for a product that you're interested in. Scott, do you click on that ad?
If I want more detailed information about that, if it really intrigues me, yes, I will click on it, looking to try to find more local information, maybe about it.
Eric, what about you? Will you click on an ad that you see on a website?
Well, yeah, I will, and I think that these days that establishes um, the first step in having a intelligent conversation with hopefully the next person that I'm going to call. If you take me to a website and ask me to fill out an email and a brief summary of what I'm wanting to do, it's not going to happen. I'm looking for, okay, I clicked on this ad, I see the product, it looks like it'll fit one of my, pieces of equipment, or it sounds like a good service that someone is offering, or it's a neat product. I'm scrolling looking for a contact. I'm not going to fill out that form.
Do you listen to any podcasts? And if so, what topics? What subject area, Eric?
Um, these days, I mean, I have to put a plug in for Ohio Corn and Wheat, so the Colonel's podcast is always there. But um, I uh, I really don't listen to that many. As crazy as that sounds, I struggle with them a little bit from time to time because, um, again, I'm in a. It seems like we're in kind of a society where opinions fly around a heck of a lot more than facts. And if I want to listen to opinions in my combine going across the field, I can call a lot of my buddies and get the same effect. So, um, for me, it's um, that's Colonel's podcast, and that's about it. I do enjoy clips, short clips from like Facebook Reels and those sorts of things. I get a kick out of that when some of the really popular ag podcasts kind of come across my reels. I do occasionally enjoy listening to those until I hear something that really makes me mad, and then I get off and go do something else. So
What about you, Scott? Do you listen to any podcasts?
I do occasionally listen to some podcasts. I'm going to say I probably don't utilize them as much as I should. Um, I do spend a fair amount of time listening to radio stations that oftentimes have the live show that the podcast is about. Not that I catch them daily because I don't, and that's where the podcast is nice. Um, I guess if I think about it, while I'm driving, I would, yeah, maybe pull up a podcast, but I don't set aside time during the day to say, oh, I want to catch up on this podcast or that podcast. Um, and so I can't, I do a little bit, but not on a regular basis.
Okay, we've established that you do listen to local radio and ag programming on your local radio station. Eric, how many radios do you have on your farm?
we added it up, I think, last year, and we were somewhere like 56 or something crazy. I mean, there's one in every truck and combine tractor, and um, all are working, and they have to be working to keep the employees happy. So
You, how many radios on your farm?
Well, that's an interesting question. I was sitting here trying to roll through my mind, and um, I mean, I don't have a number off the top of my head, but I'm sure it would be in the neighborhood of, 25 or 30. It would, yeah, I mean, I guess it would be like Eric, the trucks, of course, the pickups, tractors, and things like that. And so, and I guess for me, Eric, it's not only for the person who may be driving it that having the radio is important. I I gotta have a radio for me to run something too, and if it doesn't, it just drives me nuts.
You know,
yeah,
it's that's always really good for me to hear. But I have to ask the other question. Do you trust, you've talked about, listening to some podcasts and when they start kind of being opinionated, you lose interest. Do you trust the farm broadcasters, the people that are delivering the agricultural news and information that you hear on the radio, Eric?
the anymore I do, and in fact, in a lot of cases, because what I have found and what I'm continuing to find is that Ag is a small town, and a lot of you folks and a lot of the ag networks have a reputation to hold up. And so you got to report the facts, and we know that. So um, I do, and I trust it's we live in a society, it seems like, where anybody can pull the BS card so quickly. So I gotta believe that that tells me you guys check your facts probably more often than you did to 10, 15 years ago.
Thank you for that, Eric. We are running down to the last couple of minutes here in the program, and I thank you so much for giving us your time today. I want to close out by asking a couple of questions. Um, Christmas is coming up. Eric, is there a Christmas tradition that you do with your family?
Yeah, so my wife and I have an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, and we have twin boys that are going to be 2 in February.
Oh,
So
wow.
we battle them in church on Christmas Eve. We go to McDonald's because that's the only place that's open. Then we come home and watch Christmas movies. So there you have it.
That is perfect. Scott, how about you?
Well, I have a 10-year-old and a soon to be 13-year-old,
Boy.
and we go to church on Christmas Eve. And when I got married, the Lord blessed me with just an angel of a wife, and I definitely married up. And one of her many, many strong points is she's a wonderful cook. And so we usually invite some people over to our house and we have a Christmas Eve dinner at our house after church on Christmas Eve.
Well, that those sound like wonderful traditions to keep up, and I hope that you're doing them for many, many years. I want to thank you guys very much, Eric and Scott, for joining us today, and for all of those who are out there listening that have joined us that we can't see. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And from all of us at Brownfield Ag News, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.